What's up, guys and girls? This is our Apple Byte HomePod review. We've had it for about, I would say, like 5 or 6 days straight, and I really wanted to dig into a lot of things that some people aren't even talking about. And again, this is the HomePod. It's Apple's $349 smart speaker, but they shouldn't even call it that. I really feel like they should just call it the Apple Music speaker, and we'll get into all of that. But this isn't about bashing the HomePod, but really finding out what the HomePod can do, what it can't do, and who is this really for. So let's start off with the sound. Everyone is raving about the sound on this thing, and for its size, it's real impressive. Like, there's great mids and there's deep lows that really stand out. It can kind of lose some of the highs and some details and voices, at least when I heard it. That's compared to some other speakers that are out there, but it really comes down also to the genre of music you listen to as well. But for me, I liked it a lot, like a whole lot. Also, the other thing that sticks out is the sound is 360 degrees, and it's a room-filling 360 degree sound. There's other speakers that have this big, great sound, but they're only shooting that sound from the front. So if you walk to the side of the speaker or behind them, they're gonna sound completely different, but that's not the case with the HomePod. The engineering they did, all these years they spent to make this the best speaker at this size, really, it's an accomplishment and impressive, and honestly, it better be for $349. So there's no denying this HomePod sounds amazing, but this is also really the most walled-off Apple product we've ever seen. So let's start off with Bluetooth. There is no Bluetooth streaming at all. Now that instantly eliminates every Android phone and non-iPhone user from playing directly to the HomePod from their phone. Also, if you don't own an iPhone running iOS 11, you can't even set up the HomePod. So some of you running older iPhones, I know some of you don't want to update to iOS 11, and I don't blame you. It won't even work for you. And this is when people say this isn't a product made for non-Apple users. I think that's a load of crap. Like, why not? Apple allows the AirPods to work with Android, even if they have the less functionality. The Apple Music service works for just Android users, and this is a speaker with Apple Music. Like, it only supports that service natively, so come on, they could have done something more. It has Bluetooth 5.0 and completely blocking non-iPhone users. That's a classic Apple dick move to me. And don't think for one moment, Apple was going to include a 3.5mm headphone jack on the HomePod either, because guess what? They didn't. All right, you can stream third-party apps from your phone like Pandora, Spotify, and YouTube Music over AirPlay to the HomePod. That's if you have an iPhone. But Apple Music is the only service that you can control with your voice on the HomePod. And at the time of this review, AirPlay 2, that's still not ready, which means the promise of using 2 HomePods for stereo sound, or even doing things like multi-room speaker support, that's still not available. And there's another feature where they're trailing the rest of the industry. Okay, so one of the kind of weird things about this, when you set up the HomePod, you have to hold your phone near it, and it's supposed to pair similar to how AirPods do by detecting and using the W1 chip. Unfortunately, that process hasn't been easy sailing for everyone. Some people got blank white screens with the setup. I had to reset my phone, even reset the HomePod, just to make sure that prompt shows up. So you might find that a little difficult. Also, Android users with an Apple Music subscription. Now, if you've invested in this, and you are an Android user, you can actually use the HomePod, but it still needs an iPhone with iOS 11. You need to know someone that has that to initially set it up. So once it's set up, you can change the account in the HomePod settings from an Apple ID to an Android Apple Music one. You can go in there, change the credentials completely, but at first, none of my personally created playlists worked on it at all. This is from my Android phone, and I would say things, it wouldn't pop up. So what did I do? I'm like, okay, let's reconnect the Apple ID account. There, all the playlists that I have on my phone that I've saved in the cloud worked perfectly. I went back to putting my Android Apple Music account, and then it works. So I just want to let you know there might be some difficulty doing that, but bottom line, it does work for Android users. Apple Music does actually work. Again, sound is really Apple's first priority. They clearly nailed it, but let's talk about this as a smart speaker. Now, after using it and putting it through everything I possibly could, I'm gonna just say this right now. It's probably the dumbest speaker with an AI that you can get, and I don't say that lightly at all. So let's break down some of these reasons so you understand what I'm trying to say. Now, everyone knows it's ridiculously behind Amazon Echo and the Google Home, but Siri on the HomePod can't even do the same things that Siri does on your phone. Now, we know this HomePod does messages, notes, and reminders. You can add a note by voice if you want to, but the HomePod won't read your latest note. It'll actually prompt you to look at it on your phone. Hey Siri, read my last note.
You'll need to authenticate on iPhone to continue.
See, that's kind of annoying. We also know the HomePod doesn't support multiple users and can't distinguish between different voices like the competition. It's really made to support one person right now. And what do I mean by that? Well, you probably saw the option during setup to turn on personal requests. This lets you use messages, reminders, and notes with the HomePod. It also lets anyone else in the room do that as well. Now, someone can send and hear your messages, add reminders and notes without your knowledge whatsoever. But if you leave the home, or if you're out of range of your HomePod and your phone leaves with you, messages, notes, and reminders, they don't work at all. Like, the HomePod just becomes this thing for general knowledge and music playing to Apple Music. And it can't even do general knowledge very well. Hey Siri, tell me about Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee is a town in West Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana, United States.
Hey Siri, stop. No, it's not. He's not. So, see, check that out. If you're home, people can mess around with some of your personal apps, but when you're gone, the HomePod becomes really extremely limited. Now, speakerphone. You would think at least the HomePod could be a great speakerphone, but again, it's not. You'll still have to make the call from your phone and then change the audio output to the HomePod from your screen. Now, you can't tell the HomePod something like this. Hey Siri, call Shauna.
I can't help you make calls on HomePod. Sorry about that.
See, that doesn't work as well. Now, another part of this equation, the smart speaker, it's great in the kitchen, right? You can listen to music and you're cooking up a meal, but still to this day, Siri doesn't support multiple timers. If you're cooking with something in the oven or you got something else boiling and other things just cooking, you need multiple timers. Like, this is basic, so let's check this out. Hey Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes and counting.
Okay, let's do another one. Hey Siri, set a timer for 30 minutes.
A timer is already running at 9 minutes and 53 seconds. Would you like to replace it?
No.
Okay.
It can't do it. All right, so that's another bummer. And here's a fun fact for y'all. It's not all bad. If you want to pack this up and the cord is in the way, if you're really willing to pull really hard, you can just pop the power cable out from the HomePod. So, will the HomePod get better? Yes, it has really no other choice to, but right now, who is this for? Well, number one, if you're the die-hard Apple user who's deep into this ecosystem, you have an Apple Music subscription, and you only really care about listening to music and you don't care about the smart home, but hey, say you might want to dabble with some lights and you're willing to spend $349, this is the product for you, but the priority above all things would be listening to music. Number two, let's say if you're not completely married to the Apple ecosystem, you care about what the best tech product is, no matter what the company is, don't get a HomePod. Number three, if you're someone who's prioritizing the smart home, the voice assistant, and you like the ability to listen to music, but it's just like kind of an added benefit, you're better off looking at the Echo or the Google Home or the Sonos One. The HomePod at $349, this is not for you. And number four, if you're an Android phone user, even if you have an Apple Music subscription, I'm gonna help you out right now by giving you a big hell no to the HomePod. Like, this is not for you. So that's my Apple HomePod review. This is just the start. We'll see how it evolves over time. There you go. BTZ's Apple Byte HomePod. Take care. Peace.